Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
Okay. Well, when I think about it, Christmas was nothing like it is nowadays. You celebrate it more quietly in the church. And when we went to church, we had a enormous Christmas tree lit with candles. And when I think of it, golly, uh, somebody'd be sitting down below the tree, sitting down there, and maybe two people with, I don't know, something with a wet sponge tied to a stick or something like that. So if there'd be the least bit of flame, they could put it out. But fortunately, it never happened. But usually we went to church on Christmas Eve, and it seemed like there was always a full moon. That probably wasn't every year, but as I remember, it always seemed like a full moon. And then when we went to bed, there was no sign of anything around. But when we get up in the morning, there was always a small table-sized Christmas tree. And I don't recall very many presents, except that Esther wanted a wagon one year, and she got a wagon, coaster wagon, and then we would go to Grandma Schaefer, wish her Merry Christmas. We never took presents from them, and I don't think very many people did back then, not in Summerfield. And we'd go to Grandma Shoemaker's because Aunt Lou and Aunt Lizzie and their families would be there. But she had a tree, a feather tree, I think was from Germany, that she had. I thought it was the ugliest thing ever. And then not too many years ago, I saw one advertised, and the price was enormous because it was from Germany. But it was always, that was the one day of the year Uncle John went to church.
Oh.
Otherwise, he never attended church. And I don't know what church Grandma Schaefer belonged to, but she never went to church. But she read her Bible every day, and she was a very good person. She looked after everybody that she could, and always have a group of older women there at the house. And especially at Christmas time, but she had some relatives in Missouri and always sent her a big box of homemade candy. She shared that with anybody and everybody that came to the house. Didn't make any difference who they were. She offered them the candy, and it was good candy. And at Grandma Shoemaker's, there was always Mrs. Bruder would come over, and I was about our most company outside the family. And Alvina and Uncle John, they didn't exchange gifts at all.
Did you guys have big dinners? Did you have a Christmas dinner?
No.
No?
We never had anything. Christmas was to go to church and hear the Christmas story. That was Christmas. And there was never any celebration of any kind that I ever Grandma Schaefer didn't never had anything except maybe just have a 4 or 5 out of them friends in, and but and I did bake cookies. I don't know. I don't recall how good they were to eat. She didn't. She didn't spend too much time taking lessons and baking or anything.
What did you guys do for July 4th? Did you do anything for July 4th?
July the 4th, yeah, we get firecrackers and burn our fingers.
Was there parades or anything?
No, there was nothing like that. It was just everybody had sparklers and firecrackers. That was about it. But, well, eventually, Trenton and Lebanon and O'Fallon, 3 towns I remember, they had some kind of a doings just right around that 4th, and it'd be things to eat, you know, and a booth where you play games, stuff like that. And then they'd always raffle off a car or something. And that'd always be right around the 4th of July. And I can't remember. I can't recall anything.
Any ice cream socials?
Yeah, there would be small socials that ice cream, and then they sometimes have it. It was just not cider. What is it? What was the other drink?
Lemonade? Lemonade?
Oh, lemonade, yeah. They had that for sale. And I was trying to think of something that they made. The kids was getting lined up at the fence and wanted. I never cared for it. I can't remember what it was. But anyway, everybody made their own wine, and I guess people just didn't expect to be entertained so much. I think that was the big thing. And as it was, there was too many farmers and families that didn't get any place because of crops and things that they had to look after. And they didn't get out. And then that was always Saturday night. They'd go to Lebanon or Trenton and some town close and buy their groceries and shop up there, you know, for clothing and things. Saturday night was a big night to get to town, to learn all the gossip and everything that's going on.
And what about Thanksgiving? Thanksgiving.
Oh, Thanksgiving. I think I think there was a time or two that Aunt Lou, more than likely Aunt Lou, Aunt Lizzie, Uncle Will was old sour puss guy. He just growled when he talked. He never really talk. He just growled. And I think Aunt Lou brought a turkey out one time. Uncle Frank was a real nice person. And they had turkey. And that was the only time that I can recall. But no, and Alvina never did anything for any holiday.
So you guys didn't have a big dinner? You didn't have a big dinner?
Nope, never.
What do you remember about the first radio?
So, oh, I built one.
You did.
And oatmeal box and some wire. Golly, I don't remember how I built it. Anyway, I was determined to have a radio. But Uncle John bought a nice radio. We had one of the nicest radios of any family because kids would come by and they just marvel at the fact we get KDKA Pennsylvania. I forget what town. And we could get that one real clear. And KMOX St. Louis and KSD. And that's the only three.
What kind of shows would you listen to?
I don't think we would listen to any shows. I don't seen me most of the. Anyway, what I listened to was music. Because I know Uncle John came home one day and he said when he crossed the bridge, down that wicked bridge, he could hear our radio going down there. He said, I shouldn't turn it up that loud. Well, you know, being a teenager, I needed that loud so I could hear it or something. But, and same way with the Victrola. We just had a small size Victrola. And Uncle John loved to get those songs by, well, I don't know if they were really done by blacks or if it was just people imitating. I'm not sure. But, hear the bells and well, heck, I thought I'd remember the names of some of them. And they cut down the old pine tree and hauled it away to the mill to make a cup and a pine for that sweetheart of mine. They cut down the old pine tree, and I always thought the guy was more than losing the pine tree than he did his girl. So he became her, and then there was, if I had the wings of an angel or this high prison walls, I would fly. And all that. Such pathetic songs.
Yeah. Now, did you go to the movies? Did you go to the movies?
Did I go?
The movies.
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 Oh, yeah, they had movies. And there was a hall behind the school. And that's where they had the movies. Had a stage in it and everything. And anybody wanted to give plays there. Yeah, but they'd have movies, I think maybe every weekend or so. They were all westerns, I think. And well, I'm trying to think if there was anything beside westerns.
Were they talking movies?
Oh no, they were silent.
Silent movies?
No, I was in Springfield when the talkies come out. I went to the first one they had there, and I don't remember what it was, 'cause I wasn't too much sold on movies. They were too artificial. I thought, doesn't somebody be in the out on the desert and then the orchestras strike up and play? I thought, there's no orchestra sitting out in the desert waiting for them to come. That wasn't real.
What? Stop. Okay. We'll stop now. We're out of battery.
When I was in high school, I was 12, I think, when I entered, and was a freshman. And we had to go to Lebanon, a town west of us, and to attend high school. And it was mostly the students there, their fathers were professors at McKendree College, which was in Lebanon, and most of the group were children of business people, and there wasn't much room for the kids from Summerfield or from the surrounding country to have part in anything. I wanted to learn Latin because I thought it was an interesting subject, and I had read up on some, and I liked to read it a lot. And when I asked to join the class, I was told I couldn't because I wasn't going to college. And I wasn't sure whether I was or not, but they decided for me. And that's about the way the whole school was run. African Americans were not welcome. There was one girl that came to high school that was African American, and she just had to take the subjects they allowed her to. And it was not a very happy time, and the boys were not asked to join any of the sports things, and the same way with the girls. And we spent most of our time, if we ate lunch at school, in the basement. And that was supposed to be good enough for kids from Summerfield and from the surrounding country. And it wasn't the best of times. And when I graduated, I was glad to get away from there. And I graduated in 27. Was it 27 or 29? I can't remember. I have to look at my certificate, which is hanging out of Jim's. Anyway, during the teenage years, small town is about as boring a place for a teenager as any place could be. There's maybe a movie once a week, and it was probably a Western, and not a big movie. If you wanted to see, I know I wanted to see Al Jolson in Sonny Boy, and as a surprise, the woman lived next door to us, May Gerges, invited Aunt Alvina to drive she and her and myself over to St. Louis to see it, which was quite a surprise, and I enjoyed it so much. And I thought how great it would be to live in St. Louis. But everybody I knew went to St. Louis, and I didn't particularly want to go. So we discussed, there was very little discussion with kids, because they thought you needed to be told what to do, not ask if you'd like to do something. So somehow or other, they decided that I could go to Springfield and work there. So Alvina put me in the car and drove me to Springfield. And Aunt Claire and Uncle Harry were going to see that I got a good job and that I'd get along okay. Well, Uncle John didn't have much to say, and Alvina was the one, and I think she was glad when I left, because she had told me when I came that they only took me in order to get Esther. So I didn't feel like I was going to be missed or anything. And I went to Springfield, and Aunt Claire and Uncle Harry were very religious in the way that people looked at religion. And if you went to church, you were a good person, you were perfect, and you were sure going to heaven, and you didn't have to bother doing much else, because you were going to get there because you went to church. So anyway, I was made to join the Baptist church, which wasn't too bad. We had a lot. They had a lot of things going on for teenagers, and we got to go on trips and go at night, and we'd sit around a lake or someplace where there was a campfire, or we could have a campfire and eat,
I'm gonna take it.
and storytellers.
It's rattling.
Anyway, it wasn't all bad, but you certainly didn't learn much from the Bible or anything. Nothing compared to what did during confirmation study, and there at St. Paul's, the Evangelical Church, we learned many verses in the Bible and many of the Bible stories that I still remember, and occasionally I think of verses that I knew that we learned, and all through the Old Testament and the New Testament. So, there in Springfield, I don't remember what my first job was, whether it was working at the cafeteria. There were two cafeterias right across the street from one another. And Springfield at that time was nothing but a little country town. And there wasn't a whole lot going on for teenagers there, except what the churches provided in the way of trips and having social time and all. But anyway, I went to work at the one cafeteria. They were right across the street from one another. But working back then was a lot different than it is now. You worked 10 hours a day, and you worked 6 days a week. If you took time off, you were docked. And there was no vacation time and no retirement pays or anything. You just worked till you dropped, and that was it.
What was the salary?
The salary for 60 hours a week was $10. And boy, did you have to skimp. And we teenagers, as all do, learned to scheme and figure out how we could get more for our money. Well, we learned that there were places that sold orange juice, but they always had lots of nuts sitting out. You could eat all you wanted of them. If you went to the hotels during the happy hour, I guess they call it now, but I forget what they called it then. But anyway, we knew that there'd be food sitting out, small sandwiches and small snacks of different kind, and we'd go in there and maybe buy a Coke or some kind of a soft drink and eat. And then there was a bakery that a place that had day-old cakes and pies and things. Well, the kids that lived there, that worked there, they would they'd have maybe a cake or pie that didn't move very fast. They said that the windowsill, all cut into slices, and that was for us to eat. So we learned how to manage to get by on our salary. But when it come to clothing, that was another thing. Because a new dress, the least of one would be $10. So I know one time I bought me a dress that cost $10, and Uncle Harry laughed. He said, "Now, how are you going to pay your rent?" Well, I wasn't paying them any rent.
Oh.
So I said, well, if I had rent to pay, I just wouldn't get paid this week. I know. So I think as far as dresses went, that was about as far as I got buying dresses. And I was still wearing the old ones that I had to work, because when we got there, I can't remember if we wore a uniform or not. I was in the kitchen making making all the basic things for salads, boiling the eggs and getting the dressing for the different salads, getting that mixed up. We did everything from scratch. But the nice thing about that, working in the salad department, I had a big walk-in refrigerator. Well, we had no air conditioning or anything back then. So it was a relief to go in the refrigerator, and you'd hunt through the lettuce to be sure you had some good lettuce for your salads. And you just took your time finding things to work with. And the people that owned the restaurant were Mr. and Mrs. Strong. Mr. Strong could find some reason for firing somebody every day, and the minute he fired you, Mrs. Strong was there. They don't pay attention to Tom. Just show up tomorrow morning. He'll never notice the difference. And that was true. I know one day the girl that mixed the salad dressing, when it came to the oil and vinegar and things that you put in Wildwoods in the mixer, wouldn't show anybody how to mix it so it wouldn't splatter all over everything. So one day she got sick and couldn't come in, and it was up to us to do it. And the three of us that were working a salad counter. And we just poured the stuff in and run out of that section of the kitchen till it got mixed in, and didn't do a very good job of it. But anyway, just before I put the eggs on the boil for the salads, and in all the excitement of the things, there was two of the girls off at that time, and I forgot about the eggs. And Mr. Strong came along, and well, I was a big boned head, didn't even know how to hard boil eggs, and but he'd give you another chance. And I got by with that okay, but then after a while I decided that if I liked, I could switch over to the breakfast deal of making the toast and buttering it, and remembering who didn't want butter and who didn't want butter, and all the things about the toast. And I worked that part of the counter. But we had two elderly women who had, I guess they called knee boards. I don't know what, but anyway, they kneeled on them and had a bucket of water, and they constantly scrubbed the floors. The floors were as clean as the tables were, because those women really cleaned good. And we had to carry the trays up off of our shoulder. We were not allowed to rest them on our shoulder when we had trays of food. And the swinging doors, sometimes you'd really get a tray rammed, felt like halfway through your shoulder. And it was really hard work. But I stuck with it for quite a while. And later I worked in other restaurants. I went to work in one, and I was there overnight, and I worked at the night shift. And I was there overnight, and the next morning the woman that owned the restaurant came in and told me she was going on vacation and I'd be in charge. Well, I had no idea who to order food from or anything, or the menu or anything. And the rest of the staff was really good. They said they'd fill me in and everything, so we got by for the week that she was gone. And the restaurant didn't have to close or anything. I was scared to death we wouldn't get it done right. But they all hung together and did it. And one of the men was very good about looking after everything. And we always had to leave money at night for the person that opened in the morning, that they would have money to start with. And this one man always took care of that. So we got through that restaurant okay. But one day, some man came in to me and he said, "Guess who I saw?" This man had quit, and because he felt like he was getting not getting enough pay for what responsibility he had, and he just took off and didn't give any notice or anything. And some truck driver came in, and it had been a regular habit of coming in every night, and that he was in town. And he said, "Guess who I saw?" And it was, this man was out in Oklahoma or somewhere out west. And he said, "But don't tell the owner of the restaurant, because she would look him up and accuse him of all kinds of things." So I kept it to myself. He was there. Anyway, eventually I quit there. And I took other restaurant jobs where I either cashiered or did something beside waitress work, because I just didn't really care for waitress work.
How old were you?
I was probably in my 20s. And I worked in one restaurant where I was a cashier, and I told them I didn't know how to really be a waitress. I didn't tell them I'd been to that because
Now, was that still in Springfield?
Yeah.
Still in Springfield?
Yeah, and I did okay there. And I can't remember what my last place was there, Springfield. Anyway, there was not much work there because World War II was looming, and everybody was thinking about who's going to be called to serve, and if their jobs would keep them out or anything. And at that time, I guess I had met Jack, and it wasn't hardly any work at all in Springfield. So we packed the suitcase and went out to the highway. We didn't have any money to ride a bus or anything else, and we thought we'd go to Indianapolis. And that's how we came here.
Mother, when did you work as a nanny and stuff? When did you work for the blocks and the different people as a nanny?
Oh, I did a lot of that in Springfield. No, here, Dad. I'm kind of mixed up.
Do you want to?